In this video, we're going to take a look at the Sony PlayStation Vita. Whether you want to start collecting for the system or just want to get one to play a few games, this video will give you a good overview of the Vita and we'll discuss things like hardware differences, games, among other things. The Vita is an interesting system. Like the Wii U, the Vita ended up being one of the sales failures of the 8th generation consoles. Despite this, the Vita ended up being quite popular with a specific niche, and that is gamers who enjoy Japanese games with anime art styles. So while the system wasn't selling in mainstream terms, Japanese developers were still churning out a ton of games with a ton of limited editions, I should add. Games are still being released in 2020, so we get this strange situation where the system itself wasn't commercially viable anymore, while certain developers were quite successful making games for the platform. The Vita is also backwards compatible with digital PSP games, and PSP save data can also be transferred over. Because of this, the Vita is an interesting console to collect for. The unique situation it found itself in directly impacted the sort of game library it ended up having. But that, of course, wasn't what Sony had hoped would happen. With its touchscreen and the touchpad on the back, Sony wanted to create a device with universal appeal. They wanted to ride the wave of mobile gaming as smartphones gained popularity in the early 2010s. Even the hardware is reflective of that. We already talked about the touchscreen and the touchpad. It's got a rear and front-facing camera, with both being awful in various ways even at the time. There's motion controls, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a microphone. And the heart of the system itself is based on cell phone tech. It was quite powerful too. While people hoped for PS3 level graphics, the reality is that it sat somewhere between the 3DS and 7th gen home consoles, which is still pretty good. Now we're going to take a look at hardware. Overall, there's three different options. There's the original Vita, called the Fat or 1000 model, the Slim or 2000 model, and finally the PlayStation TV. The 1000 model is the one that seems to be the most popular because of the OLED screen. Obviously, they deteriorate over time. In fact, during dark scenes, it's easy to see weird patterns on the screen, and mine has been doing it since it was brand new. Some searching around proves that this isn't just a one-off thing either, but it seems most people simply just don't see that stuff. But still, overall, the OLED screen delivers superior colors and contrast. There's also a 3G model, which isn't really something most people need these days, or even back then, to be honest. It's not as common, so you might not even stumble upon it. The Slim has a number of changes. The OLED screen is gone and replaced with just the regular one. You don't have to worry about deterioration and burn-in problems, and you get more battery life. The Fat model gets approximately 3 to 5 hours of battery life, and the Slim extends that by around an hour. The buttons are also not as stiff as the ones on the 1000 series Vitas, which I quite like. A nice improvement is the removal of the proprietary charging cable. Instead, it's a micro USB sort of deal. The Slim also comes with 1GB of storage built in, but you can't use it in conjunction with a memory card. It's either one or the other, and most likely 1GB won't be enough anyways, so that feature doesn't really matter too much. The PlayStation TV is another option, especially if you like to play on a TV or screen. Don't expect too much though, not all games work, which is a real shame. The whitelist is a bit random, so that means with a stock system, there's games you can't play even though there's no real reason as to why they shouldn't work. People with modded systems can remove the whitelist. You can use PS3 or PS4 controllers with the console. Like the Slim, the PS TV has 1GB of built-in storage with the option of adding a memory card. For the front and rear touch controls, you can click the L and R analog sticks, with left being the front and right being the rear. If you're using a PS4 controller, you can use the front touchpad after pressing L3. Every Vita is region-free, which is very convenient, so it'll all work no matter what sort of combo of regions you can come up with. Some countries had different colored systems on offer, which may be another reason to import a Vita from another region. Like with cars, sometimes you just gotta go JDM. The must-have accessory is, of course, a memory card. This is again one of those situations where having a modded system would be advantageous, because you could just use a microSD adapter. But if you're running a stock system, then you're going to have to look at actual Vita memory cards. There's some emotions, feelings, and experiences you can only have during the time the console was actually a current system, but something you can still experience is the sadness and disappointment you get when buying a Vita memory card. They aren't cheap, especially not for the amount of space you're getting. Plus, you can't really use them with anything else. Amazon has some seemingly unbranded ones which are cheaper, and reviews claim that they're in fact legit memory cards. I don't have experience with them, since I bought mine when the Vita was still in stores, but it seems like people are having good results with them, so it might be worth checking that out. Something else to look into are grips. It's not just a comfort thing, but also about functionality. L2 and R2 as well as L3 and R3 functions can be added with some of the grips available, which is handy when doing PS4 remote play. Hori made one, but apparently there's cheaper alternatives on places like AliExpress and Wish.com that also work. I don't have experience with any grips, but they seem like a great idea and a lot of people like to use them. Since this is a mobile system, you've got your usual array of cases. Finding the standard sort of clamshell case with space for the console, some cartridges, and a charger is pretty easy. Unlike a certain newer offering from Nintendo, the Vita also allows the connection of Bluetooth headphones, which should please some of you. Of course, there's a regular headphone jack too. I always recommend a good pair of headphones. There's a couple of things you might want to take a look at if you have a PlayStation TV. First off, the AC adapter. If you don't have one or need a replacement, just look for PSP AC adapters. They work just fine. That's what I use because the one that came with it seems to have migrated. Another thing to point out is how small and light the PlayStation TV is. The HDMI and power cables are often heavier than the system itself, so it's really easy for the PS TV to be pulled into the abyss that is the area between your furniture and the wall. Some people use Velcro, but I don't really like the idea of sticking something with adhesive to the system, so get yourself a paperweight and just put that on top. Ah yes, Velcro and paperweight. Now those are real gaming accessories. The Vita has an interesting game library. Mainstream games exist, especially in the early years, but later releases were very much in the anime-style niche game category. Games come in digital and physical form. Wow, big surprise, I know. The physical cases are quite small and usually don't house anything more than the game cartridge itself. Occasionally you'll find a little piece of paper in there, but it's not uncommon for people to go through their entire Vita life without ever encountering this mythical piece of paper. That's quite a contrast considering how many Vita games ended up getting elaborate limited editions. The Neptunia series has a large presence. The remakes of the first 3 games as well as most of the spin-offs can be found on the system. In fact, the limited edition of Rebirth 1 is the most valuable Vita game in the used market. Senran Kagura also first started becoming popular because of the series' second release, Shinobi Versus, which was at first a Vita exclusive. It's actually the reason why I bought my Vita. These days, you can get this and later games on other systems like PC and PS4, but Shinobi Versus, Estival Versus, and Bon Appetit can be played on the Vita. Disgaea is very well represented on the system. Disgaea 3 and 4 have enhanced Vita ports with additional storylines and gameplay functions. Disgaea 1 and 2 and Infinite are PSP games that can be purchased off the PlayStation Store. In terms of mainline titles, we're just missing D2 and 5, so not bad at all. Here's some other games I like. Valkyrie Drive, which is from the same creator as Senran Kagura. Muramasa, Odin Sphere, and Dragon's Crown are all made by Vanillaware, which is a company known for making beautiful and well-made 2D games. Morero Chronicle is a game I talked about recently and can be found on the Vita too. Though if you're in Europe or the NA region, don't bother looking for a download release. You have to import the Asian market version, and then you can have it in English. Just to throw some more names into the mix, Persona, Final Fantasy, Mary Skelter, Danganronpa, Metal Gear Solid, Hotline Miami, Uncharted. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, even Minecraft is on the Vita, but don't expect that to have the new Nether update, or some of the older ones even. I mainly talked about some of the Japanese niche games I know about, but if you check various best Vita games lists, you'll find some interesting mainstream and indie games too. There's a decent amount of indie games actually. One thing that a lot of people find attractive about the Vita is all the functionality it provides when it's modded. Similarly to the PSP, you can play games off the memory card, emulate older consoles, and things like that. Additionally, there's also the ability to use micro SD cards through the use of an adapter to gain more storage space as well as save money. And when it comes to the PS TV, you can even remove the arbitrary whitelist and play whatever games you want on it. This is something I haven't done, but there is a website, vita.hacks.guide, which tells you what you need to do depending on which firmware you've got. While even the newest firmware systems can be modded, it's best to just keep it at whatever it is right now. So don't be like me and update the thing on camera for the whole world to see. Check the guide and see what you have to do from there. The Sony PlayStation Vita, while it didn't capture the hearts of most mainstream gamers, it ended up being a very unique platform. Over the years, I've realized that some of the most collectible consoles end up being the ones that didn't sell well. And you can see that with the Vita, since the prices of limited editions in the used market is quite high. Of course, scarcity is one of those reasons, but collectors are also more willing to spend money since the library of games isn't that large compared to more successful systems. Overall, I think this was a good overview of the Vita, its hardware, games, and accessories. If you have a Vita, I'd like to know what you think. Do you collect for it? Is it your specialized Japanese gaming machine? Or if you're looking at getting one, what's your plan and why is it an attractive system to you? Let me and the viewers know in the comments. If you like the content on this channel, consider showing support by becoming a Patreon supporter or joining the YouTube channel membership. Both of those give you access to videos before they come out on YouTube, as well as various behind-the-scenes updates. I also have a Twitter account, so follow me there as I occasionally post things. It's almost at 1,000 followers, so it would be cool to see if we can reach that number. Links to everything can be found in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.